Hey there everyone, and welcome to another school tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be going through Teleport, Healing Fountain, and Arcane Breath. These three skills are pretty interesting and I like them a lot. So Teleport, first of all, this skill, like it says, is basically for movement, and you've got to get it to 10 points before it's usable. Taking it beyond that gives a damage bonus. Now as I'm making this damage bonus actually starts when you start the teleport, and for that reason during the animation you basically lose the damage bonus by the end, so you can't really make the most of it. So I'm just going to flat out say it's better to keep it 10 out of 99 for now. However, if they change this, then it may be better to push it a bit higher for use in PvP and stuff to get a lot of damage off in one go. And yeah, increasing the cooldown is the problem. If this cooldown stayed at 5 seconds, then you could use it. But otherwise, yeah, you just want to keep this at 10 points rather than any higher, so you can use it more frequently and that kind of stuff. So anyway, this teleports a long way. You actually have to have the higher screen definition and therefore zoomed out. You can't have this on mobiles or tablets, but if you have it zoomed out, you can actually make benefit of the full distance. Because yeah, it doesn't quite go to the corner of your screen, it does it all the way horizontally. But anyway, basically you can teleport a really long way, and it's brilliant for getting through maps when you're farming and stuff. And otherwise in combat, say there are a load of enemies coming to you, then you just teleport the other side of them, or around them. Between this and then other crowd control stuff where you slow the enemies, you can control the enemies really well and stay out of harm's way. It's brilliant in combat, it's excellent in farming, and it's absolutely perfect in PvP for moving around the map and choosing when you go in and out of combat. It's one of the things which got talked about a lot on the forum, is like how wizards are actually brilliant in PvP with use of teleport. If they don't use it, they're rubbish, because one of the really big things in PvP is choosing when you're in and out of combat, because there'll be periods of time where you don't have skills ready and you don't want to be in the combat, so you can teleport out. And there are times when you have all your skills ready and you want to get in to the combat when the other person isn't ready, and then you teleport in. That kind of thing, it's just perfect. So that's what this skill is mainly used for. And these skill runes, what they add is just kind of useful extra stuff. It's actually not so important compared to the teleporting side of things. So there are ones like this Fire Blink here, or Ice Blink, which add a move speed buff onto the end. This is obviously what you want for farming, and the main benefit of it is the move speed buff. It also does a bit of damage, which I'll show you here. If I teleport into the middle of them, it hits a little area where you land and does some damage, but the damage is not very high at all, and I wouldn't expect them to put any high damage on this on this skill. It's mainly about the teleporting. So that's what's going on with this skill here and how many points to put in it. Hope everything's clear. It's a brilliant skill. You should definitely try it if you're not using it already. The next one is Healing Fountain. Now this one is mainly about healing. However, skill runes have added extra little effects and stuff which are very useful. Specifically as well, increasing the healing by a huge amount. So you can see here, it heals by 10% every second for 10 seconds. So it's a full heal over the course of 10 seconds. That's basically what it's used for. It's got a huge cooldown and stuff. Not very usable, because things kill you so quickly and stuff, and the long cooldown just makes this not very good. However, when you add skill runes, all the recent skill runes have been adding an extra 20% heal, which means it heals you by 30% of your health each second for 10 seconds. It means you can actually tank, and in PvP this is crazy. The benefit from the skill rune is actually halved, so you have a 20% heal in PvP. But otherwise, basically, in general, this is just really good for tanking for those 10 seconds. If you have this in combination with your frost armor buff, then you're basically gonna be surviving. This is a brilliant skill for tanking for that time. The only problem is the really long cooldown. In terms of the points, you can put this up to 99. This is actually a good candidate for putting up to 99, because it only increases the cooldown from 40 seconds up to 45, which means it's not that much at all, and it increases the healing by an extra 10%. This means in PvE it goes from 30% to 40%, and in PvP it goes from 20% to 30%. So yeah, basically this is really good for tanking, and the healing is good. You can get the healing better with points in it, as long as you can afford the mana cost. And skill runes, what they add is basically bits of damage, or knocking back things, or slowing enemies and stuff, take them for what they say they are, and just make sure you're getting one which increases the health gain, and the damage is actually pretty decent. It's not like a primary damage skill by any means, but it is good damage. And yeah, I'm not going to go into that in huge detail, but that's what Healing Fountain does. Let's go fight some enemies up here and show it off when it comes off cooldown anyway. Yeah, so it's going to do some damage to any enemies that walk through it and do pretty decent damage, so it's good for that. The third skill is all about damage. This was actually the best farming skill originally when the game first started, because you could group together enemies, put on Arcane Breath, and then run through them and kill them all. However, the problem is, and why this skill is absolutely rubbish nowadays, is because you get locked into the animation. Yeah, just showing the enemies dying as they run into it here. So you get locked into the animation when you use it, which means you can't do anything else. And because the damage is not that good, it's basically pointless. So you can't use this skill at all unless you use a certain skill rune. Right now we've just got Flame Breath, but later on there may be other skill runes. I assume that all new skill runes they make are going to mean that you don't get locked into the animation. So you'll see here, when I use Flame Breath, I can now still teleport and use other skills and stuff, and it's just basically a buff on my character for the next few seconds. So I'm not really going to talk about anything other than Flame Breath because of this. And yeah, so Flame Breath, what it will be doing is it adds a load of fire damage onto you. It's actually in a whole circle around you. You can see it goes behind as well. It's just in a huge circle around you. It does a load of damage. This damage skill is huge. It's one of the primary damage skills along with Polymorph and Arcane Beam. These three damage skills are going to be your main source of damage output in most cases. It's useful everywhere except for farming, because we've already got an Area of Effect thing where you run from this. So yeah, basically this is used everywhere except for farming, and it's just a huge damage buff that you put on whenever you can. Every 5 seconds you need to reapply it, but you know, that's what happens. And then in terms of the base damage, this particular skill rune, you've got to be careful here with the skill runes. So Flame Breath actually removes the base damage, which means that you don't want to put this beyond 10 points. This cooldown goes from 10 seconds to 15 seconds, which means normally it would be a good candidate for putting all the way to 99, especially because it's all about damage. That's what we saw in Mana Bolts. It's really good to push all the way up. However, in this case, because there is absolutely no base damage when you have the Flame Breath skill rune equipped, you want to keep this at 10 out of 99. Putting it out to 99 will not increase the damage at all. That said, you know, later skill runes and stuff, if they do the base damage too, this would be a great candidate for putting all the way up, because you don't increase the cooldown by that much, and this skill is all about the damage, so increasing the damage is a good idea. So I hope that's clear on what to do with these skills, where they're good. Flame Breath is one of the best skill runes to level up, first of all. So, you know, if you're wondering about skill runes to level and stuff, Flame Breath is a brilliant damage skill that, because the base skill is just useless. It's just literally adding something onto your character rather than improving something just a little bit. So that's these three skills. They're each very useful in their own regard, in their own places. I didn't talk about where to use Healing Fountain really. This is kind of, I wouldn't necessarily use it everywhere, but it is very useful in all the content. PvP, you definitely want to use it, and PvE use it if you're kind of not overpowered for the content. If you get overpowered that you don't actually really need this healing effect and stuff, then you can kind of sideline it for something else. So yeah, that's where you'd use these three skills, what they do, idea of the skill runes. I hope I've covered everything, and these ones are really interesting, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one soon.